How do I know it's working, Matt?
We're live.
We are?
Yes, sir. It
Merry
says live
Christmas.
in the top.
In the what?
Yeah,
Oh, I
I've
see.
turned Jack into a professional podcaster within a week.
Yeah, chat. Look at my setup, man. Yo, yeah, we're live. Fully live. I always ask people to drop in the chat where they're dialing in from. It's crazy, man. People watch us all over the world. Yo, look at the... Oh, man, the chat never gets old. I love you guys, man. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. What do people celebrate? Christmas.
Kwanzaa.
Did you guys know I'm technically Jewish? My mother's Jewish. I don't know my mother, but she's Jewish. So I'm Jewish. So happy Hanukkah,
That's right.
Christmas, Kwanzaa, the New Year, Santa Barbara. I'll be in Santa Barbara tomorrow. Arizona. Where are you guys tuning in from? Toronto. We let the chat build up a little bit. We got 141. Once we get to
Switzerland,
200-300.
Norway,
Switzerland.
legit.
Wow.
By the way, Trump says he's going to take back the canal, for the Panamanians out there. It's ours now. And by the way, Canada, you're on notice too. You're about to be our 51st state. All right. But no voting rights for you. You guys have been doing communism for too long. We'll just make you
we have North Idaho in the Nostr live stream. We got
did that work?
Looks like we have like 50 people in the Nostr live stream right now.
Good point.
At zap.stream.
And
don't worry, Nostr, ride or die. I'm watching that chat.
And the Twitter stream is working. Wow, this thing is amazing.
We got Portugal and Zap stream. I got you, buddy.
That's a good investor. 1031, best LP in the game.
There we go.
Podcast for you.
All right, we're at 193. Hello, chat. New York, Austria. Wow, Vienna. That's crazy. Louisiana. LSU. What bowl game is LSU in this year? You guys stunk this year. Did you make a bowl game? Argentina, Australia. Welcome. Look who I brought. Through the chimney, under the tree. Matt Odell and American HODL. Ho, 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 motherfuckers. Let's go. Orlando, Florida, Panama City. You know what reminds me of Panama? Richard Hart going to jail. What is he on the most wanted list? Did you guys see that?
Red notice.
Crazy. Yeah. Finally.
Tax evasion, and he beat up a 16-year-old Finnish teenager. Unclear if it was a man or a woman.
Okay.
We couldn't tell.
What's the hex price doing? 0?
I think it's still a top 3,000 cryptocurrency, so they're doing well.
It's funny because, he dominated the shitcoin scammery last cycle, but the new people probably have no idea who he is. And then justice always takes, 4 or 5 years. It goes in line with the cycles.
He wasn't a particularly good scammer, by the way. I don't think Hex ever cracked the top 200 shitcoins, right? I think we just paid more attention to him because he used to be like a Bitcoin maxi who broke bad and became a shitcoin scammer. And so we all gave him way more attention than he should have been given.
He was a talented scammer. He navigated through many social circles. He was as good as I've seen at social engineering, social climbing, scamming. And he had we found out through extensive Twitter research that he had a career in it before Bitcoin, right? Wasn't he scamming someone? What was he a scammer in before he found Bitcoin?
He was an email spammer, prolific email spammer. Yeah.
Yeah, he was uniquely good at it. One of the best I'd seen in my 12 years in this space. Him, Vitalik, Mount Rushmore of scamming people. Seriously.
SBF.
Jed McCaleb. Nobody ever brings that name up. Greatest scammer in the history of cryptocurrency.
That's true.
He pulled it off twice.
Yeah. Pulled it off twice, got away 3 times. Mt. Gox, Ripple, Stellar.
Yeah, he sold Mt. Gox to
sold Mt. Gox with a 40,000 Bitcoin hole in it. Just
then launched Ripple.
Yeah.
And then launched Stellar.
Right.
Made triple bank.
You guys want some inside ball alpha? I might get in trouble. I won't list the names of the company.
Fuck the NDAs. Share it.
So there are a lot of big public companies that want to work with Bitcoin companies and want to integrate things like Lightning or do Bitcoin related things, but they're under Stellar non-competes that expire at the end of this year, actually. But there's a lot of businesses that signed shitcoin non-compete arrangements that lasted multi-years, and they're kind of stuck integrating like the Stellar network. So there's a lot of US, if you're curious what these companies are, there's USDC on Stellar, that type of shit. And I expect next year there'll be a lot of folks that integrate, whether it's Strike or Lightspark or do Bitcoin related things, because those non-competes expire. So because there's a lot of curiosity, like what the fuck are these companies doing? Like there's a lot of really good engineering on the Lightning Network. Bitcoin's clearly the way to go. Why are they on Stellar? And the truth is Stellar paid them and shoved a non-compete down their throat.
The big integration shitcoin bucks.
Yeah. We all know that cryptocurrencies have legal teams and non-competes. You know, that's just standard practice.
Time is on our side. You just got to stay humble and stack sats. We're winning.
Agree. All right. We are at over 400 live viewers, which is crazy, by the way. You know, the top streamers in the world get to like 50,000. So what? We're already like 1% of those with this shitty show. We're kicking ass over here. I say we get started in a bit. I am going to let you guys do introductions because you know what blew my mind? Guys, there's 30 years of Bitcoin experience on this show. I've known these guys for a very long time. Crazy. I would say Matt and his venture fund is the biggest shareholder or one of the biggest shareholders in my company. So I know these guys, and I'm so thankful for their contributions to the space, but not everyone does know these guys. When I did a podcast with Matt last week, everyone was like, who's that guy that keeps interrupting Jack? It's like, that's my largest shareholder. So why don't you guys introduce yourselves while we let everyone pile in, and then we'll get started.
Matt, you first.
I mean, I'm not going to introduce myself. I
Come on, dude.
I like Bitcoin. I've been active in the space for a little over a decade now. Really good friends with Jack and HODL. I run a venture fund called 1031. We only invest in Bitcoin companies. I'm the guy in the hat. And I have a charity called OpenSats. We're a 501c3 charity, and we support a bunch of the open source Bitcoin developers with nonprofit grants. And so you can get a tax deduction. If you're up big right now on your MSTR or your Bitcoin, you can go to opensats.org. You can donate. You can support a bunch of developers. It's 100% pass-through. We take no cut. Right now we're sending out $1 million worth of Bitcoin every month to 40 plus countries, over 200 grant recipients, all open source devs. They make this shit possible. I stopped using X, and now I'm on something called Nostr, and you can find that by going to primal.net/Odell.
Oh boy, it took you a second, but that was a good intro. You had to warm up. All right.
I'll do mine. I'm if you don't know me, I'm American HODL. I am just a dude who owns Bitcoin. There's nothing special or unique about me. I know all the other dudes that own Bitcoin, and I offer words of encouragement on the internet and entertainment along the journey. That's all I do. I don't really do much. And you don't have to follow me or anything because I don't care. You can follow me or not or whatever. It doesn't matter. And I'm on Nostr too.
Highly recommend the follow. Your rants, especially on Nostr, have impacted me. Your rants on ego, self-love, your childhood experiences. You've been on fire lately, in my personal opinion, on Nostr specifically. I feel like you're a little bit more vulnerable on Nostr than on X.
Nostr is like I was talking with Eric Case about this earlier. It feels like Nostr is a preview or a glimpse into the future where we win, and X is the present where we're still fighting the war. Like that's basically how I would describe the two. But if you're a Bitcoiner and you go to Nostr, it's just all the people we like, and everybody is like 10 toes down, building the cypherpunk future and being like open and real and honest and vulnerable and like having courage and bravery and conviction. And it's just all my favorite people talking about my favorite thing, Bitcoin, all the time. Me and Jack and Matt are all over there talking all the time. We engage with people, a lot. So like, if you're not on Nostr, you should be. And then that's not even getting into all the cool tech behind Nostr and the way it's the actual true decentralized social media algorithm protocol that we've all been looking.
And we send Bitcoin to each other. It's called Zaps. Yeah. So if you download the Primal app in your favorite app store and wish us good morning, you'll receive Bitcoin.
Exactly. Everybody's trying to get paid on Elon's, like everybody's trying to monetize their Twitter so they can stack sats. And it's like, dude, you can stack sats directly. People just send you the sats. It's amazing. You do a banger post on Nostr and like, suddenly you got like 100K sats in your wallet. That shit adds up.
Generational wealth.
Nostr's great. Download it. It's also the only place you can see what Dorsey's up to. Shout out Dorsey.
It's true.
That guy's put a lot of money in supporting Nostr, put his balls on the line with Nostr, and Nostr's great. All right. We're going to do 2024 recap, 2025 look ahead, some predictions. Here's what I got. I think we got to talk about part of 2024. The storyline, in my opinion, is Tether. So we'll talk about Tether and their Rumble deal, but just Tether generally. If Tether's good for Bitcoin, Tether under a new Trump administration. We'll talk about Sailor, both MSTR, his digital assets framework. We got to talk about the ETFs. That was, it feels like a decade ago, but that was within the last 12 months. And then we'll talk about forward looking. Maybe what the most bullish thing. I'm curious what you guys think, if the ETFs were more bullish or if Trump winning in such a landslide was more bullish, and what's going to be most important in 2025. And we'll get into some price predictions and what we think is going to happen, some SBR stuff. Is that fair game?
Fuck yeah.
Let's
Chat, we ready? All right. We got to start with the man himself, Mr. Energy, the physicist, Michael Saylor, right? So let's start with this digital assets framework. Did you guys read this by chance?
Yes, it was like 2 pages.
I skimmed it.
Skimmed it. All right.
You skimmed 2 pages.
For those unaware in the chat, Michael Saylor released his strategic digital asset policy that he said can strengthen the US dollar, neutralize the national debt, and position America as the global leader in the 21st century digital economy, empowering millions of businesses, driving growth, and creating trillions of dollars in value. Everyone knows Saylor's a buddy of mine. I think he's a genius. I think he's been phenomenal for Bitcoin. I'm a fan of MSTR and what he's doing with MicroStrategy. I've also ranted against Saylor when he's had comments and positions against developers, when I think he's worded things a little funny. Saylor's a newer Bitcoiner than those of us hosting this fucking podcast. So I found this interesting, but I'll pass it to you guys first. What do you make of this digital assets framework, Odell? Good for Bitcoin?
Pull the PDF off the screen.
Okay.
Bring us back to the people. We're back. We don't need to look at the PDF that HODL just skimmed. First of all, gotta love the flex that Saylor posted it to Michael.com. It's like Michael.com/digital asset framework. The guy holds so many domains. I think he's clearly net win for Bitcoin. I mean, to have someone front and center who speaks suit in a real way. It goes on CNBC. He's very concise. CNBC, Bloomberg, all these mainstream. He's very concise. He understands there's Bitcoin and there's everything else. Massive win. He's also, I've been waiting for the GameStop Wall Street bet people to join Bitcoin, and he was the bridge that brought them into us, right? I think Bitcoin fixes what happened with the GameStop shenanigans, right? Robinhood turned off the fucking buy button. So he's bringing in the suits, and then he's bringing in the Wall Street bets degens. And so that's, I think, massive. I think this digital assets framework thing, I'm watching with a close eye because it does feel like it seems decent for Bitcoin. It has the strategic Bitcoin reserve element there, which, by the way, to everyone who's got their panties in a bunch, like the strategic Bitcoin reserve doesn't directly benefit people that want freedom money. Sure. But everything is easier if we're richer. Like it does increase the purchasing power of Bitcoin in a big way. It's this strategic arms race of trying to accumulate as much Bitcoin as possible. But what I was going to say is it feels like stable coins are a real big aspect here. And you said like 2 of our topics are Tether and Sailor. when he was recently on CNBC, he specifically said that Tether has proved that there's real demand for dollars on the blockchain. You know, Tether just made $10 billion in profit this year. I don't think people appreciate how much profit that is, given how small their team is. There's real product market fit there. And he's angling that we need, you know, JP Morgan and the big banks to be able to compete with Tether in a real way and unlock that market. And so I'm kind of, my spidey senses are like sensing like a little bit of a, you know, up until this point, he's been very Bitcoin focused, but I wouldn't be surprised if we start to hear more stablecoin stuff out of Saylor.
Is that a good thing or bad thing?
I mean, I mean, I think we'll see it play out, but I think if you start to think about like what does, you know, fully regulated US dollar tokens on blockchains look like, it gets pretty close to a CBDC without the Fed involved. And a lot of people will say, you know, it's not a CBDC because the Fed doesn't run it, but it accomplishes all the goals of a CBDC, which is surveillance and precise control over most financial transactions. Mm-hmm. So I will say that as much hate as Tether has gotten historically, they've towed a very tight line where they are mostly, like Tether is clearly Bitcoiners. Bitfinex and Tether, they're clearly Bitcoiners, and they're very focused on financial freedom and pushing back. I don't know if that's necessarily the case with USDC people. I know that for sure that's not the case with USDC people, and that probably wouldn't be the case with whatever comes next.
I mean, listen, my interpretation of Saylor, his strategy is people are more likely to support Bitcoin winning if they're also allowed to theoretically win. And that Bitcoin's opportunity size is so much bigger. I talked about this on a podcast recently. If the world has about $900 trillion worth of stuff that we own, Bitcoin's opportunity size is about half that. It's about $450 trillion because of all the stuff that we own. And that $900 trillion is composed of real estate and equities and currency and art and collectibles. About half of that, half the houses in the world that are owned, half the equities in the world that are owned, half the art that's owned in the world is just people that want to keep their money, that have earned value, created value, and the use case is they just want to keep it. And they've monetized all this stupid shit because they've created value and they want to keep it and have it tomorrow. And when they wake up in the morning, they want the value they created yesterday. That's the use case. And that's what Bitcoin solves for everyone on the planet. So that's $450 trillion worth of a problem for humanity. Decentralizing dental or like DeFiing futures, that's not, if you're going to distribute race car driving, theoretically, if you were to knock it out of the park, that's like what? Like a $50 million problem? It pales in comparison to a $450 trillion problem. So my interpretation of Saylor is let these people do whatever they want. It's a rounding error compared to what we're achieving with Bitcoin. It also isn't going to work because it's stupid, but people are going to support us winning if they also feel supported. Fighting people makes it more difficult than not fighting people. And I honestly, at times have disagreed with him on this, but that's clearly been his position is I'm fighting enough people. Like I'm fighting lots of people and trying to convince lots of people of Bitcoin. I don't want to also fight shitcoiners. I don't also want to fight stable coiners. And so fuck it. Let everyone do what they want. Their small rounding error problems don't actually matter. Their technology doesn't actually work. But as long as Bitcoin's given a fair chance, we're going to win. We're going to win by a landslide. And on stable coins, people have to realize, like, it's unbelievable what Tether's doing. Like, it's, and I mean unbelievable, like to the definition of the word, it is almost impossible to believe what they're achieving. The product that they're selling, they are onboarding Argentine cab drivers to purchasing US debt. at a scale to in which they've gotten Argentine cab drivers, Salvadoran pupusa makers, Chilean fucking barbers to buy more US debt than Germany. You've got to be out of your fucking mind. So no shit, dude. Like Trump and Lutnick, they love that. What are we talking about? That's like a free market entrepreneur has found a way to sell the US dollar and US debt. They're onboarding 50 million unique wallets a quarter. They're going to onboard planet Earth by the time I'm a dad. You've got to be kidding me. So, I don't know. My interpretation of Saylor is simple. Tether is very good if you're in the business of selling US debt and financing the deficits and the debt to GDP we have. Stable coins, supporting them is in Trump's best interest because you're going to get a lot of money and a lot of support. Saylor thinks a $450 trillion problem is not even remotely comparable to all these DeFi decentralized tokenomic bullshit. And so who cares? Let these people have fun in the sandbox where the big boys actually solve real problems. That's my interpretation of it, because Saylor doesn't like creating more enemies than he has to, because he's going to have enough, probably being one of the richest men in the world over the next 10 years.
I'll offer a take here. I think the surprising thing about Tether to me is that I thought Tether would have been shut down years ago. And the reason why is because Tether's not in the club. And, if you're creating a stablecoin wrapper on top of dollars and you're using US treasuries and maybe illicit US paper that, is coming from cartels or whatever, we don't know. But like that puts you on the outside of the club, and the people in the club don't like that because you're now stepping on their territory, right? And so I thought Tether would be taken out back and shot years ago. And then, obviously they did face many investigations and regulatory pressures, et cetera. But I think the story of this past year has been Tether's a part of the club. They're too big to fail, and they're now being brought in to sit at the table with everybody else. And to me, it's like there's this global cabal that has all of the guns and all of the money, and they set the rules for what currency is, right? And none of us are in that club. Like Bitcoiners are not in that club, even though many of us are getting very rich. Michael Saylor's not in that club. The richest Bitcoiners in the world just are not a part of that discussion. Like elites get together and they do rule making with each other. That's really what it's about. Who can create rules and who cannot. And I think that, Tether getting into the club, even though, we're Bitcoiners and like they're stablecoin guys and whatever, but like there are like hardcore Bitcoin maxis over at Tether. It's the first entree-vu of Bitcoiners into the club of global power, where maybe we can have a conversation about like what currency is, right? And that's a big idea. And I think like the big idea here going on with like the social change and the elite revolution within Bitcoin is that we're going to get about half the seats at the table of power, and we're going to be invited into the cabal. And then it's like this like Lord of the Rings, like, moment of power where you're standing at the precipice of the volcano and you have the ring in your hand, which is the ring is the state. And you go, destroy it, cast it into the fire. And you go, no, my precious. And then, like that's the bad path, right? Like the good path is that Bitcoiners do get together at the table of power and we bring a new idea, fresh idea, which is not, hey, we're not stuck in this death struggle between us where we're trying to decide who has more authority to do rulemaking. No, what we're bringing to the table is a fair distributed rule set for all that none of us can alter. That's the big idea. And so anyway, this is just a very like high level convoluted way to say Tether are the first guys into the club, and there will be more members, added to the club over the next 20, 30 years.
Yeah. I mean, the relevance can't be ignored. Listen, the US is running out of buyers for their debt in the specific macro time we're living in today. I mean, China dumping treasuries, right? The treasury market, at the end of the day, Yellen's job over the last few years in particular, but 4 years more generally, has been, and Jerome for that matter, is stabilize the treasury market and not let it go haywire. And the question is, who can you export and sell US debt to? You ran out of buyers. Well, some entrepreneur found a way to sell US debt to like 1 billion individuals, so much so that these individuals in these emerging markets are buying more debt than Germany. You'd got to be kidding me. So you can't ignore that level of relevance. Like, they matter significantly. And here's the thing. I think if Kamala would have won the election, to HODL's point, Tether might have been marked out as zero. They might have gotten wiped out potentially. Trump winning this election, I think Tether's going to be $1 trillion company. Now, whether that's a good thing or bad thing, and we can have philosophical debates about, are they imposing the dollar standard versus the Bitcoin standard? You can have whiskey and chat about that all you want. I think they have a real chance to be $1 trillion business under this new administration and finance a large portion of U.S. debt. And by the way, too, of all the people that talk a lot of shit on Twitter, I'm probably one of the only guys that actually has customers in these markets and actually talks to these people. It blows my mind when someone sitting in Miami, Florida tells me and my customers how they should be living your life. Go fuck yourself. Seriously. And I hate an older version of myself that used to have those opinions before I got my ass on a plane and I went to Ghana and I talked to these people. So I also have the opinion, like, we have Tether as a product, and we have the dollar in Bitcoin in America. We have the pound in Bitcoin in the UK. We have the euro in Bitcoin in Europe. And then all the other markets, primarily in Africa and Latin America, we have Tether. And I'll tell you why. Not because I like it or because I wanted it. It's because they fucking wanted it. And I'll show you guys literal metrics inside of Strike that as we've integrated Tether, the deeper we've integrated Tether, the more Bitcoin adoption on our platform in these markets. I'm not convinced it's necessarily a bad thing. It's a lot. If I'm speaking from Strike's experience, and this is general, you want to follow Bitcoin adoption, look at the GDP, look where the money is. The hottest, biggest Bitcoin market in the world is America because we're the richest. After that, it's Europe. Where within Europe? Strike's biggest market within Europe? Germany. Why? They're the richest. After that, UK. Why? They've got money. If you want people to adopt Bitcoin, you got to get them capital. You got to get them money. It's a lot harder to adopt Bitcoin on the Naira than it is on the dollar. I'm telling you, because I've talked to these fucking people. So I'm really not that convinced it's that bad of a thing. And I think they're too relevant now to be ignored, especially under this new administration. And Saylor's whole thing, I think saying like, oh, Diamond should create a stable coin, let JP Morgan. Tether is going to kick their ass. You want to know how many people have asked Strike to support USDC? 0. Right. I've never met a living person that has a pulse that's used USDC in my life. There's zero demand for Americans or Europeans to use stablecoins. I swear to God, there's not. Everyone in the global South wants Tether. And that's a free market, entrepreneurs that are very good at building technology. Paulo is a savage. He's unbelievable engineer. And Diamond JP Morgan Chase can create whatever they want. People in these emerging markets do not trust big corporations. They do not trust Wall Street. They do not trust Silicon Valley. Tether's going to mop the floor with these guys. That's my prediction.
Anonymous internet friends. I didn't interrupt Jack. I tried very hard. I agree with everything you just said, except for, like, I was just not except for this. I was just in Argentina and I went to the Cuevas, like the black market currency exchange. And you could do Bitcoin and you could do Tether. 99% of their transactions was Tether for dollars or Tether for pesos. It was not Bitcoin. Like, the people have chosen to use Tether. Tether is not going anywhere. The only piece of everything you just said that I disagree with is clearly the Trump win is massive for Tether, and it takes a lot of regulatory risk off their back. But Harris probably wouldn't have been able to kill them either, because to HODL's point, they have been basically on the firing line, just shipping product for over a decade, and everyone thought they were going to fail. There was this guy called Bitfinex that sold all his Bitcoin at $900. Yeah. He's like, Tether's going to fail and Bitcoin's going to fail because Tether's going to fail. And that was, like 3 presidents ago. So anyone who's gone short Tether has been wrong up until this point. And it's just not a prudent move to have that philosophy.
That is everyone's favorite conspiracy theory, by the way. There was a guy named George Noble who created a fund called the Nope Fund, where he shorted the Pico bottom. And he was a big Tether truther guy, and he was like, Bitcoin's going to fail because Tether's going to implode and blah blah blah. It's like, by the way, the one thing I would like to ask all the Tether truthers is like, if Tether pumps the price of Bitcoin, can I get on the phone with the Tether guys and be like, what the fuck is with all those bear markets? Like, can't you print some Bitcoins,
Yeah,
bro? Like,
right.
No,
I think, listen, if Kamala got elected, I'm not saying they would have killed Tether. I think what we're seeing with Tether is a proxy and some foreshadowing of the bigger story, which is Bitcoin. If Kamala won, Tether would have continued to have to grind through attacks, through media manipulation, through lawsuits, through NYDFS. It would have just been a slow grind up. With a new administration that fuck being pro Bitcoin, just pro technology, pro free speech is how I think of this new administration, pro innovation, pro growth. That's how I think of Trump. As an entrepreneur in America, I've never been more excited to be building technology in this country. And I think Tether, what has Tether grown since he won the election? Like 15% they've already grown if you measure their growth through market cap. So I think it's just an accelerant. They probably would have grinded away and battled the Democrats.
100%.
But it would have been less clear. To me, it's a lot more clear.
Yeah. I guess one takeaway I would just put here is I would put like, after Saylor's recent comments, and I tend to agree with you that Tether will win the battle if there's a battle here. I would put like 10 to 20% chance on like a Saylor in the Suits war against Tether this cycle. And if that happens, like I will just be on the sidelines. Like this podcast will probably be lit during it. To me, it would just be, it's like that meme where it's like the two people fighting and someone smoking a bong off on the side. Like that war could be an epic war. And I kind of felt like that was the framing that I was seeing out of the combination of his digital asset framework and his recent CNBC appearance, where he spent like 3 minutes specifically talking about stablecoin challengers to Tether.
Yeah, well, when I hear Saylor talk, I hear a guy that does not want to upset people specifically being people with money. Wall Street is the biggest buyer of his product. Look at his cap table. Capital Group, BlackRock, Vanguard. Yeah. Who's he selling his securities and his Bitcoin bonds to? He don't want to piss these guys off, and he doesn't want to make them feel like that we are threatening them. So yeah, tell Jamie Dimon he's going to have a bigger, better Tether. Is he actually? Probably not. That guy can't build technology. How is that guy going to sell a product to a Nigerian? How's that guy going to build a brand in Lagos? No way. But yeah, tell him that if he tries his hardest and we're going to help him, sure, whatever. I think Saylor's great at trying to be unifying, motivational. He went on Portnoy's show and said, Bitcoin's a game where everyone wins. You see that line? Satoshi created a game where there's no losers, and you can play and win at the same time. And I'm not making fun of him. I'm admiring him in that. I think he does a great job. What'd you say? He speaks suit. He does a great job at being the voice for the space and unifying, especially on Wall Street. So, but that's my interpretation of his message. I don't buy it for a second. If the Trump administration is about free markets, innovation, technology, it's about outputs instead of inputs. That's a big thing right now in DC, is not validating inputs. Like, oh, I spent $5 billion in Ukraine. It's what did that $5 billion actually do? That's what Elon's trying to do, right? Is reduce costs, actually value outputs, not inputs. I think Tether is going to sell more US debt to people around the world than Jamie Dimon ever will through a stablecoin product. I think they're going to.
Jack, I have a question for you. Where do you think, because he's been kind of quiet during all of this, and he's the richest man in the world, and former PayPal, wants X to be a major payment player. Where do you think Elon falls in all of this?
I think Elon hasn't. I don't think the battle with his ego is still ongoing. The people that struggle with Bitcoin the most are those that prioritize their ego. I don't think Elon has overcome that reality and hasn't accepted the level of humility that's required. The first step to being a Bitcoiner is saying, I might have been wrong on some stuff. I might not be the main character. My life would be better if I listened to Bitcoiners a long time ago. But I'm going to put all that aside and I'm going to accept the equal rights that everyone else has on the network and the reality that my life is going to be better in the future if I admit I was wrong and start buying some Bitcoin today. I don't think Elon has overcome that internal battle with himself. I see all the guys that struggle with Bitcoin. I put Mark Andreessen in this bucket too. All these guys so obviously could be big Bitcoiners and have lots of positive influence on humanity and be a bigger force for change than they already are. And I think their egos get in the way. That's my personal high-level opinion on Elon and a lot of the Silicon Valley.
I mean, Mark is also PayPal Mafia.
Yeah. By the
And
way,
so is David Sachs, the crypto czar, right?
I gotta also say, I don't think I've ever heard either of them say anything smart about Bitcoin. But I think both of them are smart individuals. I think Andreessen and Musk are both smart in their own right and in other domains. But every time I've ever heard them open their mouth about Bitcoin, their shit has been wrong. Andreessen was at least directionally correct back in 2014, and Elon owns Bitcoin, so he was directionally correct as well. But when they talk about the particulars, they just don't have the correct lens by which to view Bitcoin.
Which was shockingly eye-opening to me. It was one of those experiences, same thing with mainstream media, where everything sounds correct when you say it with enough confidence and you've got enough ad marketing and a big budget behind you until they're talking about something that you're an expert in. Once I heard Elon talk about Bitcoin, I was like, holy shit.
Yeah, like, this is so wrong.
It's so wrong. It started to make me question, does he understand what if he's lying about other things? Does he know what he's talking about ever? I just realized I was never in a position to diligence anything he was saying. But as soon as he started talking about Bitcoin, I was like, whoa, either this guy's a liar or is so incompetent that either way, it's a little terrifying. But it's that age old that you need Bitcoin more than Bitcoin needs you. And if you're not willing to accept that and you enter Bitcoin or try to be a part of Bitcoin with the understanding that you could be more important than it or be the main character, you're going to get wrecked or you're not going to stay. And it inevitably is going to pain you because obviously if Elon, what was it, last cycle, Tesla was buying some, he could have built a pretty big position, I think. And he didn't. And I think until he's willing to put his ego aside and prioritize Bitcoin and the greater good over himself, him and Andreessen and these guys will continue to struggle with it, which is a great thing, by the way. Bitcoin somehow solves that, where it's allocating today's capital and future capital to those with humility. It's phenomenal.
It's an interesting thing too, because I think last cycle in 2021, Elon had the potential to leapfrog Saylor by an order of magnitude, right? And many other tech CEOs above Saylor have that same potential. Saylor's like number 120 on the top companies list right now, which does qualify him for the S&P 500 minus some EBITDA adjusted earnings shit and yada yada. There's some inclusion criteria there, but at the end of the day, like 10 years from now, the way we view the world, the company with the most Bitcoin is going to be the most profitable company in existence. It's going to be the richest company in existence. And so if you have less Bitcoin than MicroStrategy does, you are simply not going to be as high in market cap as MicroStrategy is. That's a pretty crazy thing. And I think once people start to see that happening in real time, which it is happening now, MicroStrategy is the best performing stock of the last year. It beat NVIDIA. I expect it to beat everything again in 2025. I think people will finally start to get the message that, hey, this isn't a fluke. There's some sort of sea change going on here. And especially with like the political tailwinds, and the red wave and the Trump stuff and yada, yada. Like if you're smart and you're paying attention, the message is clear at this point in time.
There's also, hold on, Odell.
You're good.
It just reminds
No disrespect.
No disrespect. Merry Christmas. There's also one quote that you just reminded me of, HODL, which is, you cannot outwork Bitcoin. Meaning, I've found myself living a life where I make more money in my sleep than when I wake up and work as hard as I can. Right? For the life of me, I can't find ways to outperform this thing.
Yeah.
This thing, I make more money closing my eyes and dreaming than I do waking up and trying my absolute hardest to provide value for this world. And so to HODL's point, Saylor's built a big Bitcoin position. Elon can work his hardest and he can get to Mars and he can reduce the government spending and he can build a big bad rocket, do all these things. Saylor in Bitcoin terms is going to continue to eat away at him. And unless he kills his ego and starts stacking sats, he's not going to be able to outwork Bitcoin. I'm telling you, it's crazy once you realize you make more money sleeping than working, owning Bitcoin. It's really hard to outperform the best performing thing of all time, the scarcest thing of all time. It's a eye-opening thing.
By the way, I'm just going to co-sign this before we go back to Matt. Jack built a unicorn company, and he's saying that. Okay.
Well,
you're better than Jack. No, you're not. You.
Great freeze frame.
Oh, did we lose him? Well,
level Chad. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, I can hear. Oh, there.
You froze up for a second, but it was an ideal freeze frame.
God damn it.
No,
I don't know what I said, but anyway.
No, you're talking about Strike. Odell, 1031's big shareholder. They're the only outside board member. And what I say at Strike all the time is, first of all, I'm the largest shareholder of the company. And what I say is, as the largest shareholder, I own a lot of it. What I try and design Strike to do, and so far we've been successful at it, is an equity that outperforms Bitcoin. And so we're very profitable business. We take our cash flows and we buy Bitcoin. All of our intellectual property, all the assets that we own, like technology, like licenses, it's all Bitcoin correlated. So as Bitcoin becomes more valuable, all my MTLs, all my technology, everything I own gets more valuable. My growth is correlated to Bitcoin. And then my balance sheet, obviously. So we've built like levered Bitcoin. And so I would not be working on Strike if it wasn't outcompeting Bitcoin. I wouldn't. But, it's crazy. You talk to your buddies that you go to high school with. And I've got a buddy that, I love to death, will be in my wedding someday. And he's got, whatever. I'm not going to say his name. He's got dozen Bitcoin. So childhood buddy. He's got, your average job, went to your average university. Guy's a millionaire now. And he makes more money sleeping than waking up and going to work. And it's unbelievable that it doesn't matter how many promotions he gets or how he's never going to be able to outwork Bitcoin. And the same goes for Elon to Saylor. Doesn't matter how many rockets the guy creates or how many Mars. If anyone's got the best chance, it's Elon. But Saylor's going to make more money sleeping than Elon is drinking a bunch of coffee, never going to bed. He's sleeping under the Tesla rocket, right? He's not going to be able to outwork Saylor while Saylor's sleeping in his Miami house, just stacking sats.
Well, it's not a complicated concept. It seems complicated because we've had such fiat bullshit for so many years. But at the end of the day, like if you want to be a productive member of society, you have to run a profitable company. And you have to be a profitable individual yourself. If you're not running a company, right? Like what is your cash flow? How much money are you making and what are your expenses? You have to run a profit. And that profit needs to be measured in Bitcoin because that's where the world is going. And right now in Bitcoin's adoption cycle, the purchasing power growth is extraordinary, right? I personally believe Bitcoin is designed to pump forever. I think those pumps slow down as the adoption happens, right? We don't have that many people in Bitcoin yet. There's billions of people that still need access to Bitcoin, still want access to Bitcoin, and they don't even realize it yet. There's trillions of dollars of capital. Forget about number of individuals. Think about the amount of capital that doesn't have exposure to Bitcoin yet. So as a result, at this point in the adoption cycle, it's much more difficult to be profitable in Bitcoin terms. It's still possible. As Jack said, he's doing it. And how's he doing it? He's doing it by running an extremely lean company. I mean, the comparison I always like to do is Strike is available in 101 countries. They have 70 employees and they're profitable. Cash App has 12,000 employees and they're just available in America. Those are the two dichotomies there. And so you have to run a very lean operation, whether you're an individual, whether you're a company, whether you're a government, and you have to try and get as much Bitcoin cash flow as possible, whether that's in dollars and you convert it into Bitcoin or if it's in straight sats. It's not that complicated. It's just a bit of a paradigm shift for people that have been living on the fiat standard.
To distill this down a bit, we've all heard the expression, invest in yourself. you know, especially when you're young, like you're in college, like invest in yourself. It's the best investment you can make, young man. No, bullshit. Invest in Bitcoin. You suck. Bitcoin's awesome. All right. Don't invest in yourself. Invest in Bitcoin. Every time I invest in myself, I was wrong. I lost a shitload of money doing that. You know?
Well, I think
Wait, Jack, real quick to pleb Bitcoin hobbyists in the chat. By the way, I hope people love that we have YouTube and X coming into the live chat. You're part of the stream. You're alongside of us. And then we obviously have our Nostr Ride or Dies on the Zap stream. But pleb Bitcoin hobbyist said your buddy has 1,000 Bitcoin. He's a whale, an early adopter. What you said doesn't apply to all Bitcoiners. First of all, you're a millionaire if you have 10 Bitcoin.
I said
So
he had 12.
Yeah,
My buddy
your
has
math is
12.
like completely wrong. And then second of all, yeah, it's all a relative thing. Like if you save in Bitcoin for a long enough period of time, you quickly end up in situations where you spend a week and you lose like 2 years of salary or you make 2 years of salary. And it changes your whole perspective on life and how you value your time. Because the only thing more scarce than Bitcoin is time. So what are you spending your time on? If it's not the constant money grind.
Well, I talk about this at Strike all the time. You know, we were talking about profitable companies, but as an individual as well, I think being profitable is a moral imperative before a financial imperative, meaning you are literally creating more value for the world than you're consuming from the world. It is literally, in the financial sense, making the world a better place. If you are earning $100,000 a year, theoretically, you're creating $100,000 worth of value for the world and those around you. And if you're then consuming and spending only 50,000 of that, you are making the world a better place, and you're taking the excess value you're creating for others and buying sats. And that's how we run Strike as a business. If you're running an unprofitable company financially, you are not making the world a better place because you're consuming more from the world than you're giving to the world in value. And so I think being profitable, the notion that we lived in a society that you didn't have to be profitable and that profitability didn't matter and it was about growth and just getting public and dumping your shares on retail is mind-numbing to me. And so at Strike, and then myself as an individual, being profitable is a moral imperative. To me, it's ethical. To me, it's an emphasis and a focus on creating value for others and producing more for the world than you consume and take from it. And if everyone did that, then generations would leave the world a far greater place for their children than when they were born into it. Yeah. So I would encourage everyone, and Bitcoin teaches this, even if you're an individual, live profitably. And your gross profit margin as an individual, the higher you can get that, the better you are for society and the better your life will be. Reduce your expenses, increase the sats you're able to stack, increase the value that you're creating today and how much of it you're willing to capture and bring with you tomorrow.
This is why Bitcoin is ultimately about the colonization of an intergalactic space empire. You know what I mean? And I'll break it down for you. So you get correct capital allocation on Bitcoin. You can, use the Bitcoin lens by which to allocate capital appropriately. If enough people are doing that across the world, you get a Bitcoinized world. Suddenly, the thing that Jack was talking about with a single corporation is now true of the GDP of the world at scale. And so what does it mean for the GDP of the world to be not 2%, but 10% compounded over 100 years? Welcome to Kardashev type 2 civilization, bitch. You know, like where we're going, we don't need, like people keep asking, like, who will build the roads? Where we're going, we don't need roads. Okay. We're going to space. That's what we're going to do.
I've heard you talk about the space stuff. I got to admit, space is a little over my head at this point. No. I'm a HODL fan. I listen to all the podcasts that he's on. Can you break down, cause I've heard you describe it as go west, right? Like that's, and so we've gone west as far as land on Earth. Yep. Next west is Bitcoin, and then west after that is space, right? Or no?
Yep. No, totally. So like America was the world city upon a hill. That was the place of maximum freedom. I mean, what always happens is there's sort of this rift in space-time or in physical space, and it gets filled by crazy whack job libertarians and religious cultists, right? And those people go create the new world because they're so sick of, people in the authoritarianism of the old world telling them what to do. In fact, I think like libertarianism, like writ large, is a forcing function for like, humans like adaptability and colonization of like different lands and areas. Because why else do we have such a moral repulsion to being told what to do? It's because we have to like get out of there and then go create our own world elsewhere, right? And so like we've run out of physical space on Earth. Sometimes people talk about like, I'm gonna leave America, I'm gonna leave here, I'm gonna go there, whatever. It's it's all the same place. There's a global surveillance panopticon that's already been built. There's nowhere on Earth that they can't see you. And so I think like the move right now, since we can't get to space, we literally, fiat has destroyed. I mean, look at like, it's the Peter Thiel great stagnation thesis, right? Like if you go back into a room from the 1970s and you look around, really not much is different than your current room, other than like the television screen is a little better. Or like basically we live in a world that's like Star Trek, except instead of having all the great, amazing things like the replicator and teleportation from Star Trek and light speed travel, we have the communicator device. Like that's all we have. This is the only thing, right? And so we've stagnated in terms of technological progress. And that is a result of fiat currency, right? Because people are just like broadly indexing into, sort of broad market funds, and nobody's doing like the correct work of economic calculation. It's algebra versus calculus. And so if we can get people back onto a hard money standard, if we can support encryption tools that, support individuals and basically have a sovereign individual thesis, there's this new gap, this new rift, which is, it's not quite cyberspace. Like I think hackers in the early 90s were seeing this by saying like, we're going to move to cyberspace, but we needed some sort of like a merge between physical reality and cyberspace before cyberspace became real enough for us to port our life, energy, and work there. And then that was proof of work mining, right? And so this is a stopgap thing that gets us to, Bitcoin's not the thing, it's just the thing that gets us to the thing. And the thing is intergalactic space travel by doing the correct economic calculation and increasing the compounded GDP effect of the world, right? And so once we have appropriate capital allocation, we're going to have better investment, better science, better technology, and those things are going to compound at an exponential rate going forward.
Nice.
I love it. I was listening to you talk about that. I forget what podcast you were on, but I bookmarked it because I gotta understand. I mean, what am I gonna do with all my Bitcoins when I die? Right? Like my son has to get to space, right?
Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah.
Well, I
That's
think
what I'm realizing.
we're by luck or by happenstance or by divine providence, like whatever, we have the scarcest capital in the history of humanity. And if Bitcoin's a 1,000-year system, we're the lucky idiots who got the most Bitcoin and have the most ability to, invest capital into the future. And so we have a like extreme responsibility not to fuck it up, right?
HODL, have you read Three Body Problem?
Yeah, it's good. Enjoy.
By the way, HODL's the one who recommended mandibles to me.
That's true. I did show mandibles to Matt. That's my claim. That's one of my big claims to fame. Because Matt loves mandibles.
I mean, if you like this conversation, you should read Three Body Problem. I mean, it sounds like HODL's read it, but to the people listening, I just finished book number 2.
It's really good. The show on Netflix is okay.
Shows are always worse.
I don't have time for shows. I don't get people that watch a lot of shows.
The
reading is good though.
The basic premise of Three Body Problem is that we're in contact with an alien civilization that's like going to take 400 light years to get here, and then humanity has to advance our technology in the 400 years before they come here and try and annex Earth. And so that's what the show is about, basically.
Like we know they're coming. Well, that's what the book is about. Yeah. That's the book is, I presume, better than the show. I haven't watched the show.
See, this is why you need guys like HODL, because my mind only works in that, like, when I wake up, I'm like, shit, I got shit to do. I got to launch Strike Lending as fast as possible because people need Bitcoin loans. Thinking about we're fighting aliens and shit. I'm behind on that one. Okay. I feel like I'm being a bad host here because we got more topics. It's been a great conversation. Real quick, for all the people watching, I forgot. When you guys, how's it work? Professional podcaster Odell, when they like it, it's good for us, right?
Dude, you're a professional podcaster. Do you see this production quality?
We've got
you're a better podcaster than me. We're gonna have over 50,000 live viewers by the end of the cycle. You
guys,
called it.
We've got 6,400 live viewers right now. That's insane. Like the guys that make $50 million a year streaming are 50,000 live stream viewers. So we're getting up there. If you guys can all like the pod or like the thing on YouTube and Twitter, that would I think that's a good thing. Maybe not though. Who knows? We'll figure it out. Hey, if you guys don't know, this podcast, no ads. We do it because we love Bitcoin. I really appreciate these guys. Also, the holidays is a good time to say thanks, values, appreciation. I appreciate you both, not only for today, but for all you've contributed to Bitcoin and then by proxy to my life. And so thankful for everyone in the chat. If you can like the show, and thankful for these two and for Bitcoiners around. So I would say in summary, for Sailor's digital assets framework, which is kind of where we started here, I think it's pro technology, it's pro innovation. It doesn't create any more enemies. I think it's bullish for Bitcoin if this is the thing that gets put into law and we're all regulated by it. I'm cool with it. Obviously, I think all roads lead to Bitcoin. That's my focus. But I could see how we landed here. And it's probably a longer road to tell everyone that their interests suck and that they're stupid. That's generally Sailor's strategy, is to not tell people they're stupid and they suck. Just let them suck at stuff and be dumb and let Bitcoin win. That's my interpretation. Agree? Disagree?
Mm-hmm.
Agree.
Agreed.
Okay.
Agree. Next topic. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Tether. We've talked about them a lot, but quick about the Rumble deal.
Oh,
Good
yeah.
thing, bad thing, excited, think people are going to forget about it in 2 weeks. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, in general, I think more Bitcoin integration can only be a positive thing. Rumble's up 80% today, or it was when I checked in the morning. I bought some Rumble when I saw them talking to Sailor on Twitter, and then I was like, buy. And then I made like 20% and I was out on it, so I paper handed the Rumble deal. But I'm bullish on Rumble because, you know, they have strong free speech principles, First Amendment principles, and now they have, seemingly they're adopting strong Bitcoin principles. Hard to be against a company that's doing both those things.
I mean, YouTube needs competition. And it's cool to see, like, Tether is, you can have whatever opinion you have about Tether, like, they are Bitcoiners. Their main goal in life is to stack as much Bitcoin as possible in a massive way, and to increase adoption of Bitcoin. And to see them throw their dick around, you know, they're making $10 billion a year in profit, and clearly, like, Rumble is more, it seems like more of an ideological investment than anything. I absolutely love to see that. I mean, Rumble's tried to be, they're centralized, right? It's not an open protocol. Centralized always has issues in terms of censorship and whatnot, but they've tried to be on the right side of history in terms of being a censorship, not resistant, but less censorship version of YouTube. YouTube's been absolutely fucking horrible. So I think it's just really good to see left, right, and center. And I'm really excited to see what they do in terms of Bitcoin and Tether payments, because that to me has been one of the single coolest things about the Nostr ecosystem is just being able to send Bitcoin around. You know, there's all this like theoretical, philosophical conversations about like Bitcoin as savings versus Bitcoin as spending. I think good money, you need to be able to do both. And you forget about all of that when you're just sending sats around. When you're just sending people sats, you're thinking in sats, you see a post, you like the post, you send some sats. That going to Rumble, be massive.
Yeah. I have a few things on this. One, the wealth created in Bitcoin alone, if Bitcoin's a $2 trillion asset, which because of this recent little dip, we're not anymore, we're 1.9 trillion. That's a lot of new wealth created for individuals, for people, for the plebs. And then Tether creating a business that's this big, the amount of wealth that they're creating, I think it's amazing that they're going to use that wealth for competition in YouTube. They're competing in AI. I think it's value. I think it's an amazing thing that we'll see more from just Bitcoiners at large, is that all the new wealth being created is going to be deployed in the world. I think generally ethical, ambitious things that provide value. So I love to see people with ambition that want to compete against the duopolies, the monopolies of the world. I think that's a net positive thing. For the chat, am I a Tether truther? You know, let me address that though, because there was a customer of mine in Argentina that said, you know, if you have a problem giving us Tether, then you should have a problem giving dollars to your American customers. You should just turn off ACH and wire transfers and stop supporting Chase bank transfers into Strike if you don't want to support Tether transfers into us. At the end of the day, it's another fiat currency, and all these people in California and Florida that have a big problem with me wanting Tether here in Argentina seem to love wiring you fucking dollars from their Chase bank account. And so Am I a tethered maximalist? No. It's a fiat currency, but my customers in Europe and UK and US need fiat currencies to wire in and deposit out as well. That's my take on it. I love to see, as Matt said, I think they're Bitcoiners. I've met the guys. I believe that. I could be wrong. I don't know. Don't hold me to it. Don't tattoo it on my forehead. But I think they're Bitcoiners, and I think it's great that there's a lot of new wealth being created that I think people with a lot of humility that are talented, that are forward thinking and good with technology, they get to deploy and compete with businesses like YouTube. I think that's a good thing. I can't find really bad thing about that. If they fail, they fail. Free market. Anything else on Tether?
I mean, we should probably stream to Rumble next week.
Oh, yes.
We're not right now.
We're adding one at a time. We added Nostr this week.
We added X too this week.
We added X too. Wow, man. Is it X that has our viewers so high? We're almost at 7,000.
Yeah, that's what.
Is that number
it's
right?
a little bit. The X number is usually a little bit fake.
Okay. That was gonna freak me out if that
you can judge it by the chat, right? Like if you see the chat, it's like you get like 7 YouTube comments and then you get 1 X comment.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, nonetheless,
Elon juices the impressions. He wants you to see as many impressions as possible.
Rumble has a really interesting like alternative audience. I just did a QAnon Bitcoin podcast over on Rumble, and it was excellent. And there were a shitload of people that were watching it and were interested in it. So
wow.
Shout out to the guys at Rug Pull Radio.
Yeah, we'll stream to Rumble.
Yeah,
we'll stream anywhere that wants to listen. We'll stream to.
All right. I think we got to talk about the ETFs.
Oh, look, we got 2 X comments.
Yeah.
Oh,
Hello,
there.
chat.
There we go.
Yeah, and someone asked, Strike Loans, is that a 2025 thing? Our goal is much sooner, man. I think we're months away. So we're hoping to get you guys that product. All right, let me pull up the ETF chart that you kept tweeting, HODL. So I think I passed to you first. So if we're recapping 2024, one of the bigger stories is the ETF approval, and then the growth. The level of growth is staggering. I mean, to be the most successful product BlackRock has ever launched is quite the accomplishment.
I love that chart.
Dude, so I've been thinking about this chart ever since I first saw it when Balaji tweeted it. And if you look at it here, it takes roughly 20 years for gold to go to 33.2 billion AUM on BlackRock's version of the gold ETF, and BlackRock's version of the Bitcoin ETF goes to double that in a single calendar year. And if you just look at it on the chart here, I mean that is a straight line upward. It's crazy to witness. This is the most successful ETF launch in history, and ETFs have been around now for 40 years, 35 years, I think. The thing with this chart is very reminiscent of the paper mark versus the gold mark, the Weimar inflation chart that we've all seen as Bitcoiners. It reminds me of that. And I think anything that you add Bitcoin to does this vertical line. So if you go all in on Bitcoin with conviction, it does this vertical line. It did it to my personal net worth, to yours, to Strike, to MicroStrategy. Everything that Bitcoin touches goes straight up like this. It's really, truly fascinating to watch. And if this line just keeps going, effectively you're seeing the demonetization of gold in real time. Now, that doesn't mean that gold is going down. It just means gold is staying flat and Bitcoin's going parabolically upward. But yeah, that's what that is. It's demonetization of gold.
The chart that I really like is Bitcoin priced in gold because it's this direct one-to-one example. And if you see that, gold is just trending to zero in terms of Bitcoin long term. Yep. I think this chart is incredibly provocative, and so I love it, and I think it's directionally correct. But I think it's important for people to realize that the largest gold ETF is GLD and not BlackRock doesn't have the largest gold ETF, and so the largest gold ETF is run by SPDR. And is a little bit over 70 billion market cap.
Totally.
So still bigger than the BlackRock ETF, but I think GBTC is bigger than both of them anyway.
Here's your BTC USD XAU USD chart.
Yeah.
So we're, you know what I think is interesting that nobody talks about enough whenever people are like price action and Bitcoin price in dollars. Whenever I want to understand Bitcoin dips and how the market is thinking about Bitcoin, I've found it way more intuitive to look at Bitcoin priced in gold. So this dip, if you guys can see it here, how do I do this? This to me is just, we're going to retest the gold all-time high, which is 35 ounces. And we're going to, I think that we should look at this chart far more often, in my opinion. You can see a similar pattern here, breaks out, comes down, boom. But yes, this is what demonetization looks like. Look at that. That's ridiculous.
I think this is my favorite chart period in Bitcoin.
Yeah. This is a very underappreciated chart.
Yeah. I think Bitcoin. Well, do you think that we surpass the gold market cap this cycle?
Emphatically, yes. 100%
Emphatically,
yes.
So that implies what? That implies
900,000 Bitcoin price.
Is it 900? 900,000 and some point in 2025?
I'm assuming.
But I mean, but then you're saying gold is steady.
Yeah, I think gold will be steady, or even up a little bit.
Yeah.
That's the thing about, Saylor gave this talk recently. I think, Matt, you keyed on this many years ago by saying everything, shitcoin in shitcoin land is trending to zero against Bitcoin. But
literally everything, not just shitcoin land, like everything, exactly. Including real estate, gold.
Like we just showed on the gold chart, everything in the world is trending to zero against Bitcoin. And so when people say, oh, how is Bitcoin going to be worth $10 million a coin or whatever? A cheeseburger would cost $1 bajillion or whatever. It's like, no, dude, the world can continue inflating. By the time Bitcoin gets to those crazy numbers, there will be quadrillions of dollars worth of wealth in the world. And Bitcoin will have some, multi-hundred trillion market cap. And yeah, I mean, everything is going to go up, but against Bitcoin, it's going to trend to zero. So if you have money illusion, everybody in my neighborhood during COVID thought that their house doubled in value.
Right.
And technically in dollars, they did double in value, but I'm a Bitcoiner and I knew that actually I lost a shitload of Bitcoin by buying my house outright rather than having a mortgage,
Yes, you did.
So I did, I know. And so
Am I frozen or you? Oh, there he is.
No, he's frozen.
Am I frozen?
Yeah, you froze again. It was another good freeze frame.
No, I mean, what I think is interesting is when you get into my favorite HODL referenced the episode with Odell and I last week talking about the big whales on the weekends and stuff. My favorite is when people think that plebs are moving this market now. You're not. Your Binance account, I don't care how much leverage they're giving you, you're not moving a $2 trillion asset. So if we're going to go from a $2 trillion asset to a $20 trillion asset, it's implying that you're demonetizing some existing wealth somewhere else, right? You're not going to create $18 trillion worth of wealth in 12 months without demonetizing it and taking it from another asset class. And so you're speculating on what asset class is going to be demonetized. I think about this from time to time. Is Bitcoin, how much, so we're implying $18 trillion of market cap is going to be added to Bitcoin, which by the way, doesn't mean $18 trillion of purchasing, right? It's so scarce that, theoretically, $1 trillion can create $20 trillion worth of market cap adjustment. But I don't know, is all of that going to come from gold? Are people going to be selling homes? Is the bond market, is Saylor tapping into the fixed income market? I think about that from time to time. Like, is that ETF chart, is that saying that people are going to roll over their gold ETFs and into Bitcoin? Not that it matters, but
I mean, so two things here. I mean, you said that like Saylor doesn't like to pick fights. For years. So to all the new coiners out there, I've been doing a podcast with my co-host Marty Bent for 6 years every week called Rabbit Hole Recap. And I have just historically always shit on gold. Like, I own no gold. The only precious metals I own is ammo. Like, gold is a complete fucking shitcoin. And every time I talk about it, Marty's like, no, like, there are allies. Like, it's important to be friendly to the gold people. They're directionally correct. Like they're on the same team as us. In my mind, like literally the worst timeline is the timeline where like we're completely wrong about Bitcoin and like we move to a gold standard. Like that would just bring great shame to my family. But anyway, I digress. Saylor just straight up on Bloomberg or CNBC or something was like, we should sell our gold and buy Bitcoin with it. And then all of our enemies that are holding bags of gold all get demonetized and we have a shit ton of Bitcoin. He just said it out loud. He just straight up said it. And I feel like we're kind of close to this turning point where it becomes a panic trade, right? It becomes like a Mexican standoff panic trade where if you're holding large amounts of gold and you have no exposure to Bitcoin, you feel like it's a race to the exit. And so it could happen in a gradually then suddenly kind of way.
Absolutely. By the way, I think it was Matthew Pines out of BPI who came up with that idea to demonetize the gold reserves while at the same time buying Bitcoin and leapfrogging everybody in the event of a monetary reset, which is a genius level idea. And kudos to him for coming up with that and putting that out there.
Yeah, I referenced the Saifedean quote last week, and I'm trying to find it. Here it is. Bitcoin doesn't need your intellectual acceptance. Your self-interest will force you to use it sooner or later, whether you like it or not. And that's the truth, is that people aren't dumb. If owning gold gets you a smaller house, gets you less groceries, puts your kid in a worse university, has him in shittier clothes than your neighbor who's got the big house, more vacations, the faster car, their kids are in better outfits, better university, your son's got a better laptop, then you're going to own the better money. No, seriously, it's I mean, people have self-interest and people aren't stupid. People don't want to live a shitty life, no matter how much of a gold bug they are or not. That's just the reality of the situation. And that's what's so mind-numbing about Peter Schiff is he's rejected a better life. He defies what it means to be human. He's accepting a shittier life against his own self-interest. And that's why I think people find him so fascinating and he's still relevant, is because he's an anomaly. He's like a different species. But generally speaking, we don't need your intellectual acceptance. Your self-interest, you're going to get tired of seeing Bitcoiners have a better life than you, where you dump your gold ETF and you buy Bitcoin. It's so obviously better. And for those that haven't heard me go on this rant, where gold failed, gold was fine in a local economy of hundreds of people. You go to your local grocer, your local butcher, your local tailor, and you hand him a gold coin. That's fine. Peer-to-peer, hard money. You're governed by the laws of Mother Nature, immutable laws of the universe. As soon as society wanted to scale, especially with the internet, and you want to have an economy of 8 billion people and use technology, you had to deposit your gold to a central bank, to a government. And it's the reliance on a central party to achieve transaction finality is where gold failed. And it's not only failed and then I have to trust someone to send it, but then the free market is in question. If the whole supply is deposited at central institutions, is it manipulated? How is it priced? Can you be sanctioned off of the gold standard? All of those things. And it failed for that reason. So what I think people don't appreciate about Bitcoin is not only is it a bearer instrument, but it's also a network. There's capital B Bitcoin, lowercase b Bitcoin. And Bitcoin is better than gold because it's a physical bearer instrument and it's what's the gold monetary network? It's fucking us. The three of us are the gold monetary. It's humans. You got to walk your ass across town or to the other side of the world to send gold. And so it's the fact that Bitcoin was able to achieve a scarce asset and be able to facilitate transaction finality without a central party. That makes it worth 20 times gold at least, right?
Yeah, totally. By the way, never forget that Irwin Schiff died in prison so that he wouldn't have to pay taxes. So the Schiff family is very committed to, being hardcore all in on bad ideas. I got to respect it,
Yeah, I did that debate with Peter. He's a good dude. But it's bizarre. You would think, he complimented me. I don't know. But you'd think that, again, maybe it's the ego thing we were talking about with Elon. Maybe it's that reality that he can't put down his ego and say, you know what, I might have been wrong. And that happens from time to time. Life's not about being perfect. It's about being better. And fuck it, I'm going to buy some Bitcoin. Maybe it's the ego. trip that gets people, the guys that and girls that have the toughest time with Bitcoin can't get their ego out of the way. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. It says a lot. I made this comment to my dad. What does it say about the guy that's known about Bitcoin for a long time and hasn't bought any? Think about that for a second. When you're sitting over the holidays and your relative that's known about Bitcoin for 10 years and heard you explain it every which way and doesn't own any, it says a lot about his ego and sense of self and relationship with the man in the mirror.
Spoiler alert. It means you're retarded. That's what it means. You know now. Now you know the answer.
Okay. I don't disagree with that. Fuck, man. How do you host so many podcasts, Matt? Just talent.
It's fun. You gotta enjoy the live chat. All my 2 shows both have live chats. I'm a man of the live chat. I like hanging out with the people.
All right, let me ask. So we're
even the haters.
Are people hating?
Always. You're not doing it right if you don't have some haters. You gotta gather some haters along the way.
Mostly good stuff.
Boy. Yeah, whatever you need to tell yourself.
A few gold bugs.
We're a little over an hour in. We'll go 2 hours if that's cool with you guys.
Of course.
I got a question for you. What do you think is the more bullish development? Was it the ETFs and this record-setting pace of capital allocation and unlocking Wall Street, or Trump winning? It's really basically like, do you think SBR is going to happen? What do you think was more bullish for this year, and then what do you think is going to be more important next year?
Yeah, I'll go first. I mean, I think clearly it's the ETFs. This is a market structure thing, and we just simply, like you said earlier, like plebs are not pumping this anymore. I've heard Matt say this thing, which I totally agree with before, which is that the story of each Bitcoin bull run was the case of a new group of investors coming in and finding out they could pump this thing. And, in the early days, it was like libertarian whack jobs like Roger Ver with a couple $1 million. And now we need like serious amounts of capital in order to pump it. And so I think the ETFs and the options markets on the ETFs, which have just recently gone live, those are very important for market structure and being able to get the type of liquidity we need in here to pump the price into the, high 6-figure range, even 7-figure range. And so, yeah, the ETFs are a very big deal. There's a lot of Bitcoiners who hate the ETFs, and I totally get it. And, they'll somebody was calling me a fiat maxi because I own the ETFs in my retirement account, right? And I was like, yeah, bro, listen, if being all in on my retirement account makes me a shitcoiner, so be it. Like, my retirement account is just full of Bitcoin companies and Bitcoin ETFs. Like, it's just 100% Bitcoin exposure. And it has been for a long time. I remember in 2015, I told my father I was going to buy GBTC, and he literally told me, like, you are retarded. You are going to lose all your money. That's your retirement money. Why are you gambling with it? Blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, whatever, dude. I'm up a bajillion% since then, my guy. So yeah, the ETFs are a big deal, man. They're super important, and don't fade them. You don't have to own them though. Like, I would never ever in my life get rid of like spot Bitcoin that I held in cold storage in order to buy an ETF. But if you have like stuck money in a retirement account or something like that, then completely, it's a totally fine vehicle to use.
Well, I also don't get the people, like, this goes for the SBR camp too, that thinks the SBR is bad. Since when did Bitcoiners elect themselves to decide who gets to own it? It blows my mind.
Yeah.
Market access, liquidity, it's all useful for salability of money, for price discovery.
Listen, I would be totally down to gatekeep this shit if we could, but gatekeeping.
Well, then it would have no value. The whole value prop is that it's for enemies. It's for people. You don't have to have trust in your counterparty.
Imagine standing in front of the ocean and being like, nobody go in, and then people just run right around you. That's what you're doing when you're trying to gatekeep.
It's bizarre. Yeah, people are like, Jack, you're a statist. You want the government to own Bitcoin. My brother in Christ, anyone that wants to buy Bitcoin is going to be able to get Bitcoin. It's a permissionless network. I want to be a father someday. I got to figure out where I'm going to raise my kid. I would love if America was pro Bitcoin and had Bitcoin. That's why I want America. I would love to not have to leave this country. That's why I want America to own Bitcoin. But if they're going to want to own Bitcoin, it's nothing to do with me. I never understood that with the ETFs, with SBR. It's people, whoever wants to own Bitcoin is going to be able to own Bitcoin. It's not up to you. It's bizarre.
I do think part of it is because people didn't stack hard enough. They thought they had more time.
100%.
And instead, they tried to stack influence or clout or whatever, and they got caught holding the bag of clout and not enough sats, and they see it running away from them. I mean, if you net everything out, like if you believe that there will be fights in terms of freedom and privacy when using Bitcoin and other aspects of our lives, I 100% agree with you. Like, there will be fights. Like, the rights are not just granted to people. Then they wouldn't be rights. Rights are taken and they're defended. But it's strictly better to be richer in that situation than poorer. There's like this weird poor mentality where it's like if you make any money off of it, that automatically makes it a negative. To the ETFs versus SBR, ETFs versus Trump, I would probably slightly lean towards the ETFs. But like if you do it in your head, it's like Trump doesn't turn his head and that bullet lands and we have a Harris administration, Bitcoin still probably does great. Like, you're not going to crush Bitcoin. Like, Bitcoin is resistant to whatever shitty president you get. But it's a completely different world. And I do think if you go back to January, I was all fucking caps on the podcast, on Primal, like all caps, saying like this shit isn't priced in. We're hitting a new paradigm. Like, forget about the exact timing of the halving cycles, even though the cycles I think will still kind of ring true. And that shit was not priced in at all. And it's 100% the same exact thing with the SBR. Like, SBR, I would put at 90%. And I think the market is pricing it at like 20 to 30%, maybe even less. Like, it's not priced in at all. In hindsight, we're going to look back. It's going to be June, July, August, October, whatever. Like, we probably will get a little piece of it as an executive order right in the beginning. But we're going to look back in a year, 2 years, 3 years, and people are going to be like, holy shit, it was so obvious. But right now, this time and place, it is not obvious. People are panicking at 90K Bitcoin. Get over yourself. Stack as much as possible. None of this shit is priced in.
They really are panicking at 95K Bitcoin.
Who?
Do you remember the meme? It's a Stone Toss comic where it goes, Bitcoin hits 1,000, the guy's excited, and then it goes, Bitcoin crashes to 10,000, the guy's panicking, and then it says Bitcoin crashes to just 100K, and the guy puts a gun in his mouth. Like, we did that. We did that meme the other day. I remember seeing that meme 10 years ago. It's a real meme now.
This cycle reminds me of the 2016, 2017 so much.
Yes.
So much. For those that weren't around, 2016 we were at what, like $400 or something. I'll never forget it because I sent a text to a group chat of my high school friends, and I said, Bitcoin just did this thing called the halving. We should all buy one. It was like $400. And at New Year's, if Bitcoin's up, which I think it'll be, we'll have like the most kick-ass New Year's for a bunch of whatever we were, 21-year-olds ever. And if Bitcoin is down, whatever, we were going to play beer pong in my basement anyway. Doesn't matter. And nobody listened to me, but I'll never forget that because Bitcoin ended the year on New Year's Eve at 1,000 at the round number. And it was such a big psychological round number. And there's a lot of profit taking and a lot of volatility. There was also, if I remember correctly, an ETF announcement then as well. The poor Winklevoss twins has been trying to get an ETF for 10 years.
They thought this was fair. It's not.
Daddy
and then they gave up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, what do you gave up?
They don't even have one.
No, Daddy Fink showed up and said, this is mine. But the point was Bitcoin crashed from 1,000 to 800 or something. And just for everyone's context, it ended 2017 at 20,000. And
wait, Jack,
yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. Can you pull up the halving tracker? Do you know the halving tracker bot on X and Nostr? You can pull it up on X. Bitstein makes it.
By the way, at the beginning of 2017, I was telling people that we were going to go to $3,200, and that seemed like a crazy bullish prediction. We went to $20,000.
Yeah.
And we went from 10,000 to 20,000 in a few weeks.
Like 2 weeks.
Because it's almost following to a T, and like people should just stay almost stack sats. Like, don't trade charts. Like, you're just gonna end up poor. But it's like almost following to a T that 2016 cycle.
It reminds me a lot. And so the new 1,000 is 100,000. And there's going to be profit taking, and it's an emotional number. There's a lot of psychology in the big round number. Adding a new digit is a big deal. I remember when we all went from 3-digit Bitcoin to 4-digit Bitcoin. And to Matt's point, it doesn't matter how much you've stacked and how hard you've worked to build your stack. You're never going to feel like you own enough Bitcoin. And whenever a new digit is hit, you're like, God damn it. This thing's going to run away. I wanted to get more. And that everyone feels that toll. And then for context, if anyone's bad at math out there, it would imply a $2 million Bitcoin price at the same levels. And so I've never heard anyone predict that, but I've said pretty publicly on every media I do, 250 to $1 million seems reasonable. And the people that think I'm insane, they're just, oh, you're new here. Okay. Well, which is fine, but you're new here. 250, if an SBR happens, I think markets love round numbers. This thing is way too scarce. I think tapping $1 million, and I mean tapping it literally. Like we were at 20,000 for a second. That's the other thing that bothers me about people is if Steph Curry averages 29 points in his career, but his all-time high was at Madison Square Garden where he scored 60 against the Knicks. And people say, oh, well, his 30-point average throughout his career is 50% down from his all-time high. No, nobody talks about Steph Curry that way. He's a Hall of Famer because he averages 30 fucking points a game. No one references his. So when Bitcoin taps something for an all-time high and it goes 80% down from the all-time high, go fuck yourself. This is the dumbest thing, the dumbest way to measure a growing trend. But anyway, I think markets like round numbers, 500,000, $1 million, those all feel generally correct. I think gold parity is a big meme, especially if an SBR. I'm telling you, I think this thing's going to rip the face off of people in a really mean way. And that's what happened in 2017. Barry
Silbert and Celsius and fucking SBF like ruined me last cycle. So I'm going to try and not make price predictions, but my face looking at you was not me saying like you're being ridiculous. It was being like you're being a little bit bearish. Yeah, if you look at the 2016 cycle, it's almost like exactly like I'm not making any price predictions. Just stay humble and stack set. I'll make price predictions in about 6 weeks on this podcast at the rate we're going.
Listen, 200K by conference day is real this year. Year, baby.
Yeah, no, the HODL, the single best part about that is people try and dunk on me. I don't know if you saw the person in the comments try and dunk on me, and they always get it wrong. They're like, oh, didn't you guess 100K by conference day or whatever? It's like, no, I said 200K. But I repented for 181 days. My last 181 days on X during the generational bottom. I told people, good morning, stay humble, stack sats. If you didn't listen, that's on you. You have to live with that. That's between you and your family. Like I completely repented. I'm not making any price predictions until roughly 6 weeks from now, when I get caught up in the moment and I make a mistake and I just get really too bullish on it.
I'm gonna go entertain the people, will you? I think there's it's either $1,000 or $10,000 Christmas hoodie from that one cycle that I still have. I think I'm telling you, these numbers were such big psychological numbers. I'm gonna see if I can go find it. One second. Proof of closet.
Yeah, I'll say this, like Matt, I'm on the same train as you. We both make retarded bullish predictions and then one of us, and that's fine. And I like it. I think the thing is, like, you can be a retarded bull on Bitcoin, and eventually you will be proven correct, right? So, but if you're bearish to the downside, Bitcoin never goes to 3K, right? Like it went to 15, but it never went to 3K. So
people gave me
forever. You know?
People gave me shit for telling them that they should stack at the top of $13,000, right? Like live show on air. Like it took us 3 years to get past 13K, and like who regrets buying $13,000 Bitcoin at this point?
I remember
beautiful sweater, Jack.
One time
what are we looking at
on the stage?
Go on, HODL.
And you were making fun of me for buying $11,000 Bitcoin, and that seems hilarious. Like in today's day. Yeah.
Well,
retarded.
Feeling like you bought the top says a lot about your time preference. It does. It's the top for only so long.
Right.
It either says something about your time preference or something about how smart you are, how much you understand Bitcoin. Okay, look at this hoodie. This was, did any of you guys own this?
I never had that one.
This was the famous $10,000 Bitcoin hoodie Christmas special. And everyone was wearing this thing and we hit 10,000, and then 2 weeks later we were at 20,000, and I was like, shit, this hoodie's so fucking stupid. And then 18 months after that we were at 3,000. But anyway, it just reminds me of that cycle a lot. The last cycle was just weird. I know that opinion is pretty normal at this point and standard, but there was funkiness last cycle. I think also on the point, Bitcoin has to be adopted. I hold the opinion that it has to be adopted in this cyclical way because you can't print any of it. So obviously, typically, iPhones weren't adopted in these cycles, obviously, because as demand increased, they just printed more iPhones, and the iPhone chart looks a lot different than a Bitcoin chart. If you can't print any Bitcoin to meet demand, then the new supply has to come out of the market. So eventually you get the thing high enough where the existing holders of it are willing to sell, right? And then that's when it dips. Do you know what I mean? So you see these adoption waves, that it's the adoption waves of something that you can't print. And so the question that I ask myself as well is, as Bitcoin continues to mature, so do those that hold it. So, your college dorm room buddy that holds Bitcoin either lost the private key or is rich and already has his yacht and everything, or sold it all for something else and Wall Street holds it. But I think the sophistication of those that hold Bitcoin and the maturity of them, I wonder at what point they will be willing, because I'll admit, like I've said it a million times, if you guys give me the Chicago Bulls, I'll go into my cold storage. There's a price for everyone. So eventually, those that hold this asset, there will be a point where you find liquidity, and that's where the cycle will top. I think this is a sophisticated group. There's a lot of big pools of capital that I don't think are selling this thing at 200,000. I can't see it.
Well, yeah,
go ahead, Matt.
I mean, to our earlier point, the ETF, the new blood in the ETF seems stronger hands than I expected, actually, in the beginning. Like, they came in a big way. It's been almost only inflows. Like, we haven't really seen any big net negative days. All of that is public information. You can like track all, and we know it's not like OKCoin where it's like wash trading. It's like you have like a relatively good idea of the real volumes that are going through the ETFs, and they seem to be strong hands. The second piece of the puzzle is we do have tools like Strike that make it much easier to live on as close to an all-in Bitcoin life as possible. So, I mean, at this point, I think there's probably a decent amount of people like me, and I think HODL's kind of in the same boat, where we have like real expenses. Like, I mean, when you start like raising a family, like you have like real expenses that you can't defer those expenses. So like, it's not, for me, it's not like a price. It's when I need to spend my Bitcoin or sell it and pay off fiat bills, like I do it. And I'm like, I should try and spend less, right? But it's the expenses that you can't get around. You can't. There's a lot of things in life that you just have to spend money on, and that's what I think a lot of Bitcoiners at this point are doing. The weakish hands have kind of washed.
Yeah, I think that's 100% true. Something that's interesting, sort of to your point, Jack, of like, how could the market move based on the psychology of the people that are hodling, right? Like, I saw this Bitcoin distribution chart, which is based on addresses, so there's some guesswork there. But in general, I think this is relatively true that between 1 Bitcoin and 1,000 Bitcoin, those hodlers in that range control 50% of total supply. So and who are those people, by the way? They're us. They're people like us. They're the people we know. They're the people on Bitcoin Twitter. They're the people who've been stacking for years and years. I'm not at 1,000 Bitcoin. I wish I was. That'd be great. Jack probably is. I mean, maybe, I don't know, but no doxing on this call. But
no doxing, illegal.
No, I mean, like, we're starting to have families, and we're starting to want things, and people have been holding for 10 plus years at this point, and it's getting, the last cycle was very disappointing, and like, we were at 15K, and my wife came to me and was like, I'm pregnant again. Oh, and private school costs $15,000 a year, and I was like, Jesus Christ, how many children do we have? Like, can we sell one of them? So it's going to depend on what we do as hodlers. I think that is what the price is going to do. Period.
Yeah, of course. I mean,
Yeah.
But it all implies on how much you value. I think that value Bitcoin in energy terms. The most underrated Bitcoin chart is Bitcoin against oil. I mean,
Pull it up.
yeah. God damn it. Professional podcaster making all these demands. Listen, money
Somebody else do this shit.
money is our time and energy in an abstracted form. All my employees are on holiday break. Killing me. I don't know how we're gonna do Q&A. But listen,
Look at us.
here's the deal. Money's time and energy in abstracted form. The base layer of money is energy. And so I like measuring Bitcoin in oil to give me a little bit of insight into how good Bitcoin is doing at preserving or outperforming energy for the rest of the world. And so when I think of, first of all, I don't think of selling my Bitcoin ever. I think of spending it. I think of it as money. It's the only money I own. I don't own dollars. Everyone knows that. So I own Strike, my house, Bitcoin. The only time I really spend Bitcoin outside of operational expenses is in energy terms. Energy terms meaning, can it advance my life in some, like, can it save me time? You know, like, is a certain travel, like, I will pay for certain travel arrangements if it's going to save me time, because that's an energy expenditure. Does that make sense? So
Yes.
and that's really how I think the world will tend to spending Bitcoin. So you're talking about your kids, whether it's your house, these are energy expenses, which your access to energy is a direct correlation to your quality of life, whether you're a country, a family, an individual. And so obviously the more abundant energy is in your life, the better your life probably is. And so I think understanding Bitcoin in energy terms is really important. And so when Bitcoin gets too dislocated from oil or whatever then I think that the market's probably a bit out of whack and we need to retrace. So I can't talk and pull up the chart. So once I'm done talking, I'll pull up the chart, but it's a fascinating chart. And something I watch closely. So, and I think that the market will do exactly that, because you're right. It's a $2 trillion asset going on 20 trillion. You're not going to, if your pleb needs to, buy the kid's private school, that's not going to move the market. It's when are the holders of this asset, $20 trillion asset soon, going to think of Bitcoin as overpriced in energy terms, not in dollar terms?
To be clear, I think that we're going to still drop 80% at the end of the cycle, or near
100%.
that. I don't want to hear from the peanut gallery out there if we drop 75% that I got that wrong. I'm saying directionally, I expect a big drop. And the reason is because it's a free market. Yep. It's a free market. Humans are inherently volatile creatures. The world is a volatile beast. As Jack said, no one's printing this thing. So at some point, we're going to all start panic buying. We're going to panic FOMO. Everyone's going to be in caps, not just me. And at that point, we're going to hit an 80% drawdown. And it's the way the world works. Yeah. This is the way the world actually works if it doesn't have bumpers and foam walls and all this other shit that protects you and hides you from it. And in my proper fashion, I will probably hold it all the way down, except for the most important expenses in my life. Because I've almost every top, I think hyper-Bitcoinization is upon us. And that's exactly why it's a top. Yeah,
but Bitcoin, to be clear, is energy money. So there is no capturing more energy for yourself. I guess you could theoretically scale out into barrels of oil, but again, Bitcoin is designed to solve this exact problem for you. There's no property tax on it. It doesn't take up space in my house. It's free to hold. It's easy to hold myself. So I think too, when you say that we're going to have an 80% drawdown, that's true. But what people don't understand is that implies how high we're going. 80% drawdown from $1 million. Yeah, I believe that.
It's still going to be painful though. Super.
Of course.
Painful. And I do have to say that back to that ETF chart. I mean, listen, my gut intuition here is the same as Matt's, same as Jack's, which is we're probably going to have a 70-80% correction for sure. Because as a Bitcoiner, who's been here multiple cycles, you would just be so dumb to not believe that, right? Or not plan and prepare for that. But that said, when the gold ETF launched, there was 8 years of bull market on gold. So I think there could be a scenario in which the Bitcoin market is structurally volatile. So you're getting 50% moves either direction. but you're still making new all-time highs every year for 8 years in a row. That would be weird. That would catch a lot of people off guard. And again, it's like, this is why we talk about hodling so much, and it's the biggest meme in the space, is because when you hodl, there's only like 11 days where Bitcoin makes most of its profit for the year. So when you hodl, you're in the market on every one of those days. If you're not hodling, you're trying to time the market, you miss one of those days, your CAGR rate on Bitcoin is severely diminished. You miss 2 of those days, it's even more diminished. You miss 3 of those days, you're performing as good as the S&P 500. So what's even the point of being in Bitcoin? So yeah, you have to stomach the volatility and hodl your way through. And if you do either one of those scenarios that we're talking about, 1 million to 200 retrace, or 8 years of bull market, whatever, you're good either way. View it like Jack said, and like, view it as your money. It's just your money. It's your savings. That's it.
Yeah, I'm trying to find this one chart I had, because it also measures the SPX against oil. It's really interesting, because really what you want in storing value is you want to protect your life in energy terms. Everyone should be thinking about their life that way. And, like purchasing power and stuff, but I prefer energy terms. So when you look at like how gold has done in energy terms, it's gotten fucking smoked. It hasn't protected you in energy terms at all. And the SPX also not so great either. And so it's fascinating. The only energy money, and that's like, obviously you get into proof of work. It's fascinating that Bitcoin is designed to be energy money in a very specific, particular way. Like, I love saying Bitcoin is time and energy in abstracted form. What initially blew my mind in like a really out of body experience is money is your time and energy in abstracted form. Satoshi designed Bitcoin for the energy part with proof of work, requiring energy. But then what about the time part? The question is, how much energy does Bitcoin demand? And it's denominated in time. It's not denominated in watts or anything like that. And that's when my head was, is that somehow Satoshi took requiring energy denominated in an amount of time, and an average of every 10 minutes. How much energy do I need to contribute to Bitcoin? 10 minutes worth of energy.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow. And that's why it's the best money. Well, I'm going to try and find this chart. If I don't, I'll post it on Twitter.
I don't have enough Bitcoin.
Yo, I don't know if you guys have seen this. MicroStrategy just announced a special shareholder meeting, and they are looking to increase their common stock from 330 million shares to 10,330,000,000 shares. And they want to raise their preferred stock from 5 million shares to 1,005,000,000 shares, which would put them at the same. By the way, they're not going to dilute all that right away, obviously, but
Yeah, how does that work?
Well, it will give them the room to dilute all the way.
Is that the ATM? He can just hit it whenever he wants?
Yeah. It would give them the room to dilute all the way until they're as high in market cap as Apple or Google or Tesla. Pretty crazy.
You got to respect the hustle. Like, it's just like literally on like 17, and Saylor has said, like when I say 17, it's like turn the dial to 10, like Saylor's turn the dial to fucking 17. And like Saylor has said that his yachts are his children. He's unmarried. He doesn't have kids. MicroStrategy is his baby.
Yeah.
He's just like mission focused on this thing. And I mean, full disclosure, like I own 0 MicroStrategy stock, but also I was never in a situation to have a retirement account or anything.
Right.
So I'm just like left curve, Bitcoin only. It's like my family's entire life is in Bitcoin cold storage, multi-sig.
I got into MicroStrategy on accident because my wife had a 401k that had like some amount of money from when she worked or whatever. And I was like, hey, do you still have that stupid 401k? And she was like, yeah. I was like, let me see it. And then I just YOLO'd it all into MicroStrategy. and then I didn't check it for like 3 years. And then I was like, holy shit, there's like a lot of money in here. It's the best, man. Just being retardedly directionally long on anything Bitcoin related. You'll do well.
And to the Zap stream, Ride or Dies, like I see you, I'm watching your live chat. Like if you want to be the priority live chat, if you want me to convince Jack to make you guys the priority live chat, you got to compete with YouTube. YouTube's just banging out here. It's super active. You guys aren't active enough. There's not enough Zaps. Jack, by the way, you've gotten. Are you paying attention to it? You've gotten about 10,000 sats and zaps. We have Kieran, the creator of Zapstream, zapped you 4,000 sats. Just straight
I love
freedom
Kieran.
money to your wallet.
I know Kieran. Shout out Kieran. No, I'm not paying attention.
Well, I'm paying attention. I'll be the Zapstream guy.
This will be the most unprofessional podcast, but I'm big. No one wants another politician. No one wants another corporate suit. No one wants a bald, veiny-headed, Louis Vuitton wearing suit telling you what to do with your money. This is just pure humanity on this podcast. Always has been, always will be. So no, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. Not even close. But that's the way it should be. That's the way it should be. I'm not pretending to be someone I'm not. Chat. I don't even know how to check that. I just opened fucking.
I can say I'll vouch for Jack. I've known Jack since before he was super successful, and he's exactly
this guy.
He's exactly the same dude. Exactly the same dude. Hasn't changed. Well,
I will say that as the professional podcaster here, Jack launched Strike on my podcast, and HODL launched his shitpost career on my podcast. So
that's true.
The HODL episode is an all-time. It is. It's an all-time episode. I encourage everyone in your downtime over the holidays. Do you know the number off the top of your head?
No, it was like 100 or something. 109.
Like September of 2019 or October 2019, somewhere in there.
Really
you have to put the proof of work in and find it. We got fucking trash. I had to bring HODL to his hotel afterwards.
It's true. Dude, what felt, we were reveling in this moment during that pod of like having a secret. That's what it felt like. I mean, if you go back in your mind to the 2018-19 bear market, the world thought that Bitcoin had died and it was over and it would never come back. And we all knew that what we're seeing right now, was going to happen. We didn't know when it was going to happen. We didn't know quite how it was going to happen, but we knew eventually 100K Bitcoin would happen. We knew nation state level stacking would happen. All these things, like we predicted these things, and they were easy to see because we had the appropriate lens, which is the Bitcoin lens. We weren't thinking at, hey, somebody has to decree this. We were like, here's how the network works. Here's how it's going to exert itself on reality. And it's pretty easy for a couple of drunk idiots to correctly predict the future. I mean, that should be your sign,
Well, it's also people don't talk enough about how Satoshi found a way to distribute this thing to the people. What percentage of Bitcoin is owned by Wall Street and governments? A fraction compared to, Satoshi did not take the white paper to Goldman Sachs and say, I created something new. I need to take it public and distribute ownership. Through proof of work and mining, he found a way to make sure that the people own this thing. It's one of the most powerful aspects of Bitcoin, and it's astonishing that worked. I can't tell if Odell thinks I'm a fucking comedian.
No, dude, the Nostr live chat is just, Zapstream is just destroying me right now. You're my people. You're my fam. I've done.
What?
You're my ride or dies. You know how it is, guys. What? Because I told them, they were angry that the YouTube chat was up here on screen with us, and they're not on screen. And I told them to zap harder, and now they're just attacking me. It's just left and right attacks, and I appreciate them.
Okay, hold on.
That's what I'm laughing at. I'm laughing at that.
I'm making a chart that I want to show. Odell, you gotta host. Let's do some Q&A.
All right.
Okay.
All my employees are out of office, so no one is in office to.
I've been taking a vacation in 6 years.
Question, Jack. I have the first question in the Q&A.
For me?
When women's shoes in women's shoe closet?
Never, man. Never. This thing's staying empty for the rest of my life.
You know his secret, right? I mean, he went and got the sweater. He has another closet.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, "Oh, Zen Jack, he's got an empty closet." But meanwhile, he's got two closets.
Well, I mean, come on, people aren't stupid.
What was the original decision to put your office in the closet? Like,
it's a good office. You should see the view.
Okay. I don't know if I've ever given like an actual answer on this. Okay, so here's what happened. First day I moved in here, I had a media appearance. I forget what it was. It was like CNBC or Pomp podcast or something. And Odell's been in my house. He was just there. Everyone saw the photo of him in the closet looking pathetic. It was hilarious. So here's the deal. it's clearly the best room in my house for an office. First of all, I live in here alone. It's in the wing of the house where my bedroom is, so it's the best room. So I run in here on the first day and I put my laptop down and I join whatever the media was. And the closet's obviously empty. When I toured this place, by the way, this is important, full Gucci, Louis, purses, right? The prior owner's wife's closet. Okay. Afterwards, it turns into a meme. Everyone on the internet is like, is this baby face kid really trying to change money out of an empty fucking closet? And at first I was really embarrassed. And then it kind of hit me like, wait, I am a little bit. And I leaned into it and it became a meme of like, we've printed so much money. It's gotten so obscene and absurd that rooms like this exist. The overconsumption of stupid stuff, the dislocation of, and just capital allocation is totally miscalculated. It's so ridiculous. And then I was like, wait a second. Yes, I am. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to join CNBC. I'm going to flirt with the host. And I'm going to sit in this empty closet to make a point because this thing says more to the world than I can put into words sometimes. It was like, this speaks fiat. So I'm going to sit in the heart of fiat and I'm going to preach the liberties of Bitcoin. And so, yeah, I was sitting in here and it was like December and I was on CNN with Julia Chatterley and I'm sitting in this big empty closet and I'm like, hey, Julia, happy early Valentine's Day.
I remember that.
Valentine's Day wasn't for 60 days. And so, yeah, I think it's just a point is, listen, I'm not going to put on a blue suit. I'm not going to wear Louboutin sneakers. I'm not going to shave my head. I'm going to make a mockery of the system. All the people that have gone on CNBC haven't come close to my performance. Everyone is better off listening to me than their Goldman Sachs advisor, than their BlackRock portfolio advisor, than their Vanguard account, than their Morgan Stanley portfolio manager. I've outperformed all of them just by stacking sats, just by being human, just by being real. And yeah, I am sitting in an empty closet. And fuck you, because I can. And the future of wealth in the world is guys like me. And what the fuck are you going to do about it? And if I don't want to put a hoodie in my closet, there's nothing you could do about it. I got my sats in cold storage. So that's kind of like how I was born. It's very natural, not on purpose, but I think it speaks volumes and it's a meme.
This is why I love Jack. This is why I love Jack. You know,
it's a nice closet.
It just tells the story too. It's like Bitcoiners, there's so much wealth appreciation and you get yourself your dream house, right? And then you walk in it and you're like, oh, I'm supposed to meet a materialistic girl and have her fill this with purses.
Yeah.
But the buck stops here. It's like, no purses in this house, sats in this house. And that's the story of this closet, right? It's like only sats in this house. And I'm going to go on all the media and I'm going to outperform you guys sitting in this empty closet and make you question everything. Make you question your central bank, your government, your financial advisor. So anyway.
I'm glad I asked about the closet. I really
respect.
That's a good question. Okay. More Q&A. I'm almost done with this chart. It's a good one, I promise. But not to me.
Who in the chat has questions specifically about the closet? Try and keep them closet related, please.
Yeah, ask questions. I think we covered all the closet trivia you needed.
Brutal.
We got another 4,200 sat zap from Polly. Thank you for your freedom money. Can you recommend a reading on explaining energy and relate to Bitcoin? I got nothing.
Yeah, what's the best article on that? I'm trying to think.
There's no questions here. They just love your story, Jack.
What?
Give me sats or give me death. That's not a question, but I like it. You know.
Yeah,
we have the best closets, folks.
Can we get the live chat? Can the live chat go all caps? Can we get an all caps live chat?
When strike available in more countries?
We're in 101 countries.
That's a lot of countries, man. There's only like 180. They can't go to North Korea, bro.
Yeah, no kidding.
Oh, which one of the Mag 7 is the first to adopt Bitcoin? I like that question. I think it's Zuck, right? Doesn't everybody think it's going to be Zuck?
Zuck personally has Bitcoin, right? Didn't
Yeah.
he name one of his dogs Bitcoin
His
or
goat,
Satoshi?
he has 2 goats, and one of them is named Max, and one of them is named Bitcoin. Bitcoin Maximals. Plus, here's the thing about Zuck. Okay, I've thought about this quite a bit. Zuck is a motherfucker. Let's be honest. Okay, he's not going to let the Winklevi take his money from the sale of his stock and put it into Bitcoin and become richer than him. No, he definitely owns as much Bitcoin as the Winklevi twins, at least as much. That's his insurance policy on them becoming richer than him. And so I bet you that Zuck has like several $billion in like stealth, Bitcoin wealth out there. So if anybody's likely to do it, I think it's Zuck.
Yeah.
Plus, it makes metaverse shit, Zapping
I think
in the metaverse makes a lot of sense.
Zuck is probably the most like I said, I think he personally owns Bitcoin. Also, it falls in the rubric of he has a lot of control over that business still, which is important.
Well.
Yeah, I think Zuck as well. I think Zuck, because I was only half paying attention, but founder-led businesses are really important too. There's still like a heart and soul at that company, albeit you can disagree with it sometimes, but I think
Plus,
Zuck
Peter Thiel, Mark Andreessen are both on the board still, aren't they? So you got
yeah, there's a lot of reasons.
Pro Bitcoin on the board. Yeah.
Okay.
Go Jack.
Wait, look at this chart. I think this is fascinating. So here's what we're looking at. So this is the SPX total returns. So just like a snapshot of stocks is the point I'm trying to gather here. And I'm measuring it against Bitcoin is in white. Gold is in this like maroon. Oil is in the brighter purple here. And then the actual SPX total return. So you can see over this duration. So what? I'm at 2021 or something. The stock market's a little more than doubled. It's up a little over 100%. Does that make sense so far?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Now you can see it's getting murdered by Bitcoin. It's down 78%. Now in energy terms, it's about even against oil. Gold, it's up tremendously. You're better off owning stocks than owning gold. And this here is my point, is that the world has moved, the world's monetized the stock market, and majority of the world's active wealth is in stocks. And when I pull up this chart, it says everything to me, which is the world is generally measuring energy terms and life expenditure in energy with the stock market, and Bitcoin is murdering it. SPXTR is down 78% over this duration. And this to me is like, wow, holy shit. Bitcoin is the asset to own. And like what Saylor is arbitraging here are these, right? These two. But anyway, this chart to me is fascinating. This tells me gold sucks. You're better off owning stocks than gold. This tells me that the stock market is the current asset that is most monetized, where wealth is going to keep and maintain energy purchasing power. And Bitcoin is where all of this capital is going to rotate into, because it's clearly the winner and the best and the most nascent. But this chart's fascinating to me, like absolutely fascinating.
Yeah. These hurdle rates are definitely something I think that people need to consider, not just how is Bitcoin doing, in relation to one thing or the other, but in relation to many things. It's important to know. It's important to know that you're clearing all the hurdles you need to be clearing. And if your investment is not, then it's time to rethink your investments.
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, how many people do you know that have like these savings accounts that make 5% or whatever, or 4 point something percent, and they're like, I'm making 4%. It's like, dude, you're getting blown the fuck out. You know what I mean? Like you're getting smoked.
Real inflation is like 12%.
Yeah, I mean, oil chart looks like the Bitcoin gold chart. All Bitcoin charts look the same. It's just off and to the right. But I like thinking of things in energy. So look at that. The white is BTC USD over oil. My goodness.
Yeah.
There you go.
We can buy hella oil now. It's sick.
Hella energy. All right.
I'm gonna need that for my Legion one day. You know what I mean? You're not rich
Your
until you have a
Citadel.
Legion. Yeah.
Citadel. I think there was another take of yours actually, HODL. It was a presentation you gave at BitBlock Boom, I think. What was that called again?
The
Bitcoin Mafia.
Bitcoin Mafia.
Yeah, great. And I agree with that. I think you're going to have like, at what point do Bitcoiners band together and buy an NFL team, and that NFL team is never going to sell seed oils, right? And it's going to pay players in harder money and price their contracts in sats. Eventually, I do think that that's the case too. I think there's going to be a lot of, maybe that's this cycle. What cycle do you think that like Saylor and Dorsey like buy the New York Giants? I'm extrapolating. Maybe those two don't have any interest, but at what point?
We're still a ways away because I think most Bitcoiners believe that there's 1,000x left on Bitcoin's story. At least I believe that.
Sure.
So if there's 1,000x left, it's like, I don't know, do I want to, even if I have the means to start buying billion-dollar things, do I really want to buy billion-dollar things when I could actually buy trillion-dollar things?
Yeah.
You're seeing it on a smaller scale, like small business stuff, local community stuff, for sure. And that's one of the cool things, right? Like the PayPal Mafia was like what? Like 20 people in a magazine in a single picture, right? Like the Bitcoin Mafia is what? 100,000 people? Most of them, nobody has any idea who they are.
Yep.
Yeah. I'll tell a quick story, and maybe this is how we wrap. I had an opportunity with an NBA team to put the Bitcoin jersey patch on they were going to be like the Bitcoin team. And it was important, like not the Strike team, not the Coinbase team, like the Bitcoin team.
Yeah.
And I sent out some texts of like, is anyone else interested in this? Should we do it? And Saylor told me, you know what I think you should do? Any of the money that would go to that, you should take it and you should just buy Bitcoin. That's the best way to support Bitcoin.
Taylor has become Matt Odell.
And
the most on-brand thing ever.
And it fucked me up. I was like, damn, man, I feel like an idiot. I can't believe I was thinking of doing anything else besides buying Bitcoin. And I did. I bought Bitcoin. Bitcoin was what, like 55K, 60K at the time. And here we are. So yeah, you're probably right. We're probably a ways away because the best thing you could be doing is just owning sats.
Totally. 100%.
All right, boys. Well, it's been 2 hours. I know the chat, we usually do Q&A, but I'm missing a lot of the team. So no one's here to help me with that. So I think we may just have to cut. I mean, how are you guys feeling? I think we may just have to cut it.
I mean, I saw one good question in the Zap stream, which was to me and HODL, because Jack isn't married yet. How'd you orange pill your wife?
So I was talking about this actually on Twitter this morning, and I think basically I just was so about that life. That's the real answer. Is like, I sold my car. I started driving a moped. I was brown bagging my lunch every day. I was like really deeply committed. I was putting all my money into it, and I was asking her to do the same. And she was trepidatious at first, especially because this was 2015. And we weren't even married. She was just my fiance at the time, right? And so, I understand her trepidation. But I think once she saw a few months of me just being fully pot committed to this, she got on board, and thankfully that has worked out. So I think lead and then act in accordance with share your vision with your spouse, and then act in accordance with your vision.
Well, you said something about 2015. That's when me and my lady started dating, and the meme is we're all getting girlfriends in the bull market. Don't get girlfriends in a bull market. You need to get them in a bear market.
That's right.
And depending on your urgency, you really should get through a couple bear markets together before you marry them. Like my wife is a complete ride or die. Like she's more of a Bitcoiner than I am. Like she's not in front of a camera. I'm the LARP. She's raising the kids and all in on Bitcoin. Like I don't have to convince her. I can't imagine a world where I had to explain to her that I'm not a crazy person.
Yeah. Matt's wife is very based and sweet. I can vouch.
The best. Yeah, my girlfriend, I see the chat saying my girlfriend better not fill this closet. She knows.
That's how we'll know there will be shoes in the back there. You know?
No, she knows. My girlfriend actually helped me set up this. I got a new desk. I got a real mic. I got a camera. That was all my girlfriend, and she knows her clothes are going on the other side of the house. She knows. That's how you know you got the one. The closet stays empty.
So good.
She's legit. Ride or die.
Ride or die. That's right. That's right.
All
All right, boys. Merry Christmas.
Let's wrap it. Merry Christmas, boys.
Yeah.
Merry
Thank you guys
Christmas.
for coming on. This is banger.
course.
This is all-time high numbers on this podcast of ours.
And,
And we crashed all the way to 90K, and we still got all-time high numbers.
Oh, did we?
Look at that. No, I don't know. I'm just
By the
being
dip.
hyperbolic.
Oh, I was gonna say, if Strike had any cash flow, it was gonna buy it right after I hit end.
Can't stack when you're all in.
Yeah. All right, guys in chat, I appreciate you guys. We appreciate you. Bitcoiners, spend time with your loved ones. We'll stack on the other side of the new year.
Fuck yeah.
Cool.
Love you guys.
Peace.